pre-show talk. How do you guys listen to your podcasts? Do you guys listen to them at regular speed or like speed them up?
Regular speed.
Regular speed.
Regular speed. So I listen to ours at like 1.5 times speed, and it is really funny to hear not just everybody else, but to hear myself talking even faster than I normally do.
I don't know how I feel about that.
I don't ever
You
listen
should try it.
to ours at I don't listen to ours sped up because I'm having to listen critically to it. If I'm behind on podcasts, depending on who I'm listening to and who the guests are, I will do 2 or 1.5x, and if I'm just blasting through it to make sure I don't miss anything, 2x.
I listen to most almost everything exclusively at 1.5.
1.5 is way too fast for me. If I'm gonna speed it up, it'll be 1.25.
Like if it's somebody that talks really fast, then 1.25, I'm with you there. And sometimes it's like if I really want to pay attention, it'll be at 1. But I'm so used to hearing people talk fast.
I'm more, if I'm going to listen to something in general, I'm wanting to, I want to actually consume and comprehend what I'm listening to. And so I want to hear it at the normal speed that they've recorded it. And 2, I want to listen to it at the speed that they recorded it. I want to hear the genuine article. I don't want to hear a altered version that's sped up. Now,
I mean, that's fair.
Okay, and on the flip side, from a somewhat hypocritical point, when I'm listening to, when I'm studying, when I'm listening to, certification study videos and stuff.
Oh, that's 2x all the way.
I will listen to those at 1.25. I'll speed it up a little bit.
When it comes to studying stuff, I much prefer books and articles these days, just because of how much fluff is in the typical.
Yeah.
That I agree to. I typically these days, I just give me a knowledge-based article or give me the written doc.
Well, you're a special case in that sense.
100%.
Well, because the thing about that, especially if
I do like though I like the presentation of like examples and stuff in the video as opposed to example picture 1, example picture 2,
Oh, 100%, 100%. I think the best ones are like the articles that you can read through them, but they also have the videos.
Okay, yeah.
To kind of explain, like
Yeah,
that
that's
would be
not so
the best happy medium. But for the most part, and this is more me coming from I already know some of what I'm looking for, so I know what I'm looking for something. I'm not just here to
it's not true blue. It's not.
I'm not starting from
study.
ground zero.
Yeah, you're not learning something completely new. Okay.
Yeah. So at that point, because the like at work for professional development, we have Pluralsight, right? Which is great.
Nice.
Don't get me wrong, I like Pluralsight. But sometimes if I am specifically hunting for something more than what the documentation provides, like some better examples or something like that, I would prefer an article, which isn't necessarily what Pluralsight provides. Now, granted, this could just be I haven't looked hard enough or at all. So I find a course and I'm like, all right, let me, just kind of skim through the videos and stuff. But just skimming through videos is nowhere near as easy as skimming through an article that has like well thought out headlines and all that business.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I actually found a course that I want to slow down. I'm going through a machine learning course right now, and this girl takes 2 steps forward and 1 step back and talks faster than a New Yorker. It's insane.
That's awesome.
Like, it wouldn't be as bad, but she'll be going through examples, and I'll be trying to follow along to get most memory and stuff down. And she'll be 5 lines down, and then she'll be like, "Oh yeah, I forgot. I have to make this variable or something." And she'll shoot back up, and I'm like, "Why?" I'm like having to trying to pay attention to work while I'm doing this, and it's like ah.
I thought his timing was actually pretty good.
It was really good. Like ending on that, it was great.
Formal protest.
Noted.
Denied.
Well, for protesting stuff, I don't like having the talking behind the music. Like it sounds kind of weird.
Formal protest.
It's being noted.
Speaking of formal protest, welcome to Hostility in the Morning podcast. I'm your host, John, joined here today by
Nathan.
Matthew.
Steven.
Ian.
I have a bone to pick.
I have a bone to pick with how little hostility you're bringing right now.
Is it with the coffee that's in your hand?
I was gonna say
It's
'cause of
not.
the
It's
mug.
actually water in my hand, but thank you.
Oh, well, it's in a coffee mug.
There you
It is
go.
in a coffee mug. I have a pretty massive bone to pick with a
Like
very
a femur bone.
yes, like a very small indie developer known as Apple.
I think I've heard of them before.
Maybe you may have heard
You
of
may
them.
have talked about them on an episode or two.
They have
Have we actually?
Macs, they have iPhones,
Published
they have
ones?
iPads, devices such as that nature. They have iWatches, a thing called an iPod.
They
There
don't
used to
call
be-
anything with the I anymore. It's
I
all
know,
Apple.
it's terrible.
Do they have an iPod still?
No, they don't. However, there's a convenience feature that they currently have on their devices where they have a keychain with your password stored into it. And when you're trying to log into a website or another application stuff, it's going to let you autofill your keychain, right?
Hmm.
Then why, when I push the keychain button to autofill my passwords into it, does it not actually autofill? Doesn't do it.
It doesn't just work.
You press the button and then it lowers the keyboard. It doesn't fill in anything in the text box, and it just gives you the middle finger.
That's very uncharacteristic. It usually just works.
Doesn't work. It doesn't work on my Mac. It doesn't work on my iPad, and it doesn't work on my work phone.
Are you using it exactly the way that they want you to use it?
Probably not.
What do you mean? It pops up with your password, your username and your password. You tap it, and then it's supposed to just fill it.
Have you looked at a Apple KB article about this yet?
Why would I read a KB article on how to autofill a password?
Yeah, Steven, why would he read
What
a
would
KB
you
article
not
when
read
he
a
can
KB
talk to
article
an
on?
Apple genius?
That is a fantastic point. That is a great
You don't
point.
need articles.
Have you
This
been
is
to the
Apple.
I-
Have you
been to the
talked to a genius yet?
Have you taken it to the Genius Bar?
If I go to the Genius Bar, I fully expect if they're going to be called an Apple Genius, I want to see a piece of paper that shows their IQ score that Apple provided to them during a testing period that claims they're an actual genius in that area.
They'll produce a piece of notebook paper that's scribbled on there with a crayon, their IQ.
Because then they're just watering down the term genius. They're not genius. They're just
Apple
technicians.
says they are. They got a
Apple
blue
says
shirt with a
Apple
little
says
apple
a lot
on
of
it.
things.
Yes, they do.
Okay. You need to call for help. Who do you call? The Apple geniuses or the Geek Squad?
Ooh. Those are your only
You
two
have
choices.
to pick one
Those
of the
are
two.
your only two
Who
choices.
are you picking to help you
I wanna-
troubleshoot your
I
issue?
want- No, I want to suffer. I will continue to suffer because that's less painful. I will keep dealing with having to manually type in my username and passwords that I have to memorize because a certain convenience feature refuses to operate in the manner that it was designed.
Why are you not using a password manager?
I do use a password manager, however, it's not currently logged in on my mobile devices.
That sounds like a you issue.
That does sound
that's
like
a
a
small
you
skill
issue.
issue.
That's a small. It's fine. It was just annoyance that I had to type in my very secure password to get into my Hostility Network's email address, and then I had to fulfill the MFA, which I'm fully expected to do that, which I am the one who's pushing that out anyways.
It's very
Users, am I right?
his very secure password is capital P @ I don't know.
$.
Yeah, W0RD.
That's actually not an allowed password in our current environment.
You're gonna have to bleep that whole thing out. You can't have that on air.
Oh darn! Speaking of things we can't have
Some-
on air,
Some listeners gonna actually have that password. Like,
Hilarious.
what's wrong with my password?
How did they know it?
Ian,
Yo,
I honestly did not read your article at all. I wanted
Wow.
I wanted to come into this completely blind
For shame.
and just kind of I want you to explain this like you're explaining it to your grandparents. What is happening? What is going on in the world of AI and Mr. Elon Musk?
so we're gonna back up a couple years, and by a couple years I mean like a decade. Elon Musk and a few other guys started this little company called OpenAI, or at least Musk helped start it. And he left a few years ago whenever they wanted to go in one direction. He's like, yeah, you guys do that. I don't like it. And then a few years after that, Microsoft comes in right after OpenAI and ChatGPT just starts making headlines absolutely everywhere. And Microsoft's like, here's a bunch of money, and throws it at OpenAI. And so they now have the rights to it and have locked down OpenAI. So OpenAI used to be open source, but it is no longer open source. Therefore, the name doesn't make sense. But Elon Musk has come in and basically said that he's going to sue Microsoft because Microsoft is no longer what's the right word? Abiding by the core tenets of how OpenAI was originally meant to be.
Because OpenAI was supposed to be pretty much the AI platform that everyone was going to use and kind of base their large language models off of, and kind of be the set standard and almost like the golden rule of how AI should be operating currently right now, right?
That was one of the original intentions, yes.
Also, the article we are discussing is Elon Musk sues OpenAI over AI threat on Courthouse News Service.
We will have this article linked in the description below.
Anyways, so it's a whole deal because now Elon's coming in and saying, hey, you can't do that. Microsoft's like, well, we own it, so we can, and we're literally about to have a fight of a giant versus a titan.
So, in any of the documentation on the fundamentals of when the company was first founded, and as it's been developing and growing over the years before Microsoft, did they actually outright purchase it, or are they just large sum investors that now own market share inside of it?
They're large investors, according to Bing
Okay.
and Copilot.
So
Copilot is very adamant that Microsoft does not own OpenAI.
gotcha.
They have a, in quotation marks, complex relationship. But if you believe anything other than they are
Okay,
firmly in Microsoft's pocket,
Well,
you're
thankfully, that's not
paying
a
attention.
No, I will be
thankfully,
honest.
that's not a biased source of information.
Not at all.
Really glad to know.
And that is actually a very Microsoft answer. Like, no. We don't own this product. We're currently have a complex partnership between them.
Complex
and us.
relationship.
A complex relationship. Oh, they need to update their relationship status on Facebook then.
So
it's complicated.
It is complicated.
Here on Copilot, under investments, it says Microsoft has invested over $10 billion into OpenAI.
Wait,
Whoa.
10 million or billion?
10 billion with
billion.
a B.
Okay.
10 billion. The
So
investment-
basically, they own it.
The investment entitles Microsoft to up to 49% of the for-profit arm of OpenAI's profits.
They have enough power over it though to fire the original CEO and other high-level people
That
So-
they then rehired.
However,
that they then rehired
Yeah, they
after all
rehired.
this.
However,
after all this came out.
it is important to note, and I'm still reading this verbatim, that this doesn't translate to ownership of OpenAI. Microsoft does not own part of OpenAI. That's what
They're-
Copilot wants us to believe.
They're just an investment arm of it. So they have influence, but they're not taking ownership of that influence. Got it.
So my question is, and I skimmed through the article, admittedly didn't read through it in much detail, but so I don't know if it states it here. My question is, based on Mr. Musk's claims that OpenAI is they're acting contrary to their original mission. Does OpenAI in any of their company document, their not their mission. I mean, a mission statement. I'm sorry, but a mission statement's BS. There's no legal binding to a mission statement. But in any of their legal documentation, their legal anything, does it ever state that OpenAI will always remain open source and always and forever?
That I don't know.
Because I mean, based
the
on
way-
the claims that I did, Musk is making these accusations in such a way that it sounds like it's like, oh, not just you have a duty to the community, a duty to society to keep this open. So it's like you have gone against you have gone against policy, you've gone against something really official,
A core tenant.
yeah. And that's why I'm suing you. And it's like, but on its face, it seems like, okay, you're just complaining that the bros got together in the very beginning and agreed, it had a handshake agreement that, hey, we're never going to make this closed source. But then later on down the road, they made it closed source. While yes, there may be ethics and morals and such, in question here. That's not a legally binding thing. I mean, if the company, it's a company that's owned
At
by
least as
people.
far as we
If they
understand
want to
it.
take it closed source, they have the right to do so.
Well, here's the interesting thing. Actually, skimming through the article towards the very bottom here, which claims Microsoft, which is not named as a defendant in the suit, gained exclusive licensing to OpenAI's GPT-3 language model in 2022. Microsoft continues to assert rights over GPT-4, which it claims has not reached the level of AGI, which, if you don't know what AGI is, that is the artificial general intelligence. So, meaning it doesn't think for itself. It's still more of skimming the internet, gaining a general understanding of what the topic or the prompt that you're attempting to do is on that front. But it would not block its licensing privileges. So Microsoft, at least it's claiming here, is you can still go out and license GPT-4 despite this current stakehold that they have in the company. And Musk currently claims Microsoft's hold on Altman and the OpenAI board will keep them from declaring GPT-4 as an AGI in order to keep the technology private and profitable. Neither OpenAI nor Musk could immediately be reached for comment. Thursday night, Musk is repeated in the suit by Los Angeles law firm Urel and Manila.
Slight correction, Microsoft gained the licensing to GPT-3 in 2020.
In 2020, okay.
So all of this comes back. What it ultimately comes back to is the fact that it's not open source, and the reason that they originally wanted it open source. And to Stephen, your question earlier about whether we actually know any of it, I don't think we're actually going to get any of those core documents until this thing actually reaches a trial. But
if it reaches a trial.
if it reaches a trial, true. But the part of the reason that they originally, or most specifically originally, wanted it to be completely open source was to prevent bad actors from turning this into basically a super weapon. And
Here's the question I currently have, and this I'm actually doing a little bit of digging on this at the same time, is OpenAI actually open source?
it used to be. You can still go and download OpenAI GPT 2.0. It is still out there on the web. It's on Hugging Face.
But do you have direct access to the LLM and the source code to be able to modify, compile, and or make that current code into your own?
As far as I'm aware, you do not have access to the source code. You can reach it with an API and use it and then train something based on it, but you cannot take the source code and train it from scratch yourself.
Yeah, so it's not a true open source project.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, here's a quote from Musk on the suit. OpenAI Incorporated has been transformed into a closed-source de facto subsidiary of the largest technology company in the world, Microsoft. Under its new board, it is not just developing, but is actually refining an AGI to maximize profits for Microsoft rather than the benefit of humanity. The term AGI is artificial general intelligence. I'm saying this for the listeners. ChatGPT is currently classified as ChatGPT 3.5 is an ANI, artificial narrow intelligence. There's 3 steps to it: ANI, AGI, ASI, which is artificial super intelligence. Currently, as far as the public knows, there are no actual AGIs on Earth, because once we hit the AGI, the model is self-sustaining and is essentially a human brain.
Well, not completely there. It actually can retain its own thoughts and opinions. That's what the AGI is. The ASI, that is the one where it pretty much is actual intelligence, super intelligence to that point.
No, not quite. AGI is considered at the same intelligence level of a human in terms of knowledge capacity and ability to learn. And ASI
supersedes that.
And is essentially one ASI has a greater intelligence than all of humanity.
Gotcha. Which is when we unplug it and just never plug it back in.
Yeah.
I have to say that, I don't know, just on its face in reading the claim, I think that this is personally at this point in time, without it going, with it not having gone to trial and evidence put forward. This seems like a frivolous lawsuit to me. I mean, it's the I mean, you can agree with the claims or not. I'm not necessarily disagreeing with the general points of the claims, but to bring a legal suit against another company for just opinions, basically,
It's
opinions
definitely a
or
viewpoint.
claims based on an opinion. It's this just seems really frivolous to me.
I mean, I see where you're coming from, but I'm really curious about is where this actually goes. Because if Musk's actually in this for the pursuant of a better humanity, which according to him and some of the other things that I've read, that seems to be where his lawsuit standpoint is that one of the core tenets was to stay open source, and it's in the pursuit of a better human culture,
We're looking
nature,
at
stuff
better
like
humanity, then we'll
Yeah.
delete all of it and scrap it.
that. Well, I agree with
In
that.
I
my
mean,
opinion.
yeah, but I also kind of agree on the point of what Musk was attempting to do there, which was if we're going to go and pursue this level of technology and have something like this available, it should be easily parsed and easily viewable and accessible to the general public. That way, you have some level of checks and balance with it. You have some way that you can fundamentally understand how it operates, and you have a way where it can be used, modified, manipulated for multiple different use cases than what the closed source operation says you can and cannot do. So it's a much more wider operation that you're allowed to have and adopt against versus what OpenAI has at the moment, which is a more closed down model, and you're limited to the feature subset that OpenAI has developed as of this time.
And not only that, but Musk has actually backed himself up on this, or kind of sort of with Grok. He just told XAI to release Grok 1, which is the base train model that the currently uh, public face of Grok, which is X's AI chatbot, which is 1.4, is based off of. And it's a 314 parameter.
Billion.
314 billion parameter model with multiple expert modes, and the thing is absolutely insane. It is frankly stronger than ChatGPT 4. ChatGPT, there have been some rumors and leaks about a 4.5 turbo, which should be releasing soon. We'll see what happens there, but as it currently stands, Grok 1.4 is a significantly better model than OpenAI's model, and he released it to the public.
As of right now, it is available on GitHub.
Which one?
Grok.
Oh yes, yeah, they released it a couple days ago, actually, Sunday.
As a side note, like it's actually available as in the source code, because there are things that are on GitHub that it's on GitHub, but it's not actually open source. They followed up with this one.
Yeah, and honestly, it's even more impressive they did it this way, because the model that they released is a completely untrained model. So you have everything. Basically, you have the entire skeleton to work with and sift through and train it to whatever you want. Whereas ChatGPT, you literally just have access to the servers and can call it to do something, but you can't actually really make it your own.
And they went with Microsoft for them to just turn it into a really generic biased search engine, and thing that the thing that it can do with in like Azure environments, I guess that's kind of cool if it actually works the way it's supposed to.
It can be very interesting. I haven't had a chance to play with it just yet. I'm actually getting some documentation over some of the new features that is coming later this month and throughout the year. With it being able to attach to the Graph API inside of the 365 in Azure Tenant, and being able to, at least when it comes to the collaboration side, it makes a lot more sense to me because you literally have an AI assistant who can monitor calendar, filter emails, alerting, things
But
of
I
that
mean,
nature.
compared to what ChatGPT started as and what it's kind of meant for,
it's much more streamlined and restricted than what it originally
yeah, I
has
mean,
been.
it's like it almost seems
Potentially,
like,
at
I
least.
mean, like, yes, it can be used for what it's being used for in the Microsoft ecosystem, but in fairness, Microsoft could have also written something that wasn't even necessarily AI that could do the same thing, right?
It would have been based off of base level machine learning, which again is like the predecessor to what AI became. And yes, it would have done pretty much the exact same thing, just with a nice fancy GUI, which is going to get redesigned
But
7
as per
times a year.
usual, they had something that was already built that they didn't have to do themselves,
Oh, yeah.
and they just bought it.
I mean,
Well, bought rights to it. Excuse me.
I mean, that is the big corporation way. Why would you dedicate the funds to build something from the ground up when you can just go and do acquisition?
Steven, you said something I laughed at earlier. You said ChatGPT was biased, and in some ways it is. But then it reminded me of Google's what is it called now? Gemini. It used to
Gemini?
be Bard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that thing
Oh,
was bad.
Heavily
when
biased.
when it first got released and Twitter
Yes.
got its hands on it,
Yeah.
was amazing, dude.
Oh.
It took less than 24 hours for it to go full racist.
Is that the one
It
that went
was-
racist? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
I didn't
insane.
witness it, but I heard about it.
It went full like racist, fascist, and
They
like
had to shut it down.
yes,
No, it wasn't even that. It was going the other way too. I mean, it was
It went both
it
ways.
was rewriting history.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was bad.
it was. Don't get me wrong, it was scary,
In less
But
than
it-
24 hours.
but it was hilarious at the same time. Yes, it was like you gave your toddler access to the whipped cream can and said, "All right, you can have just a little bit of it, a little," and now it's somehow all over the kitchen, bathroom, the back deck, and it got into the intake of your engine somehow. It's just it's everywhere, and somehow it's racist at the same time. We don't know what happened.
Sounds like something Ian's toddler would do.
Gosh.
Not the racist part.
Not the racist part.
just the all over the
Just the
place
whipped
part.
We had our house completely clean yesterday. It is not completely clean anymore.
Welcome to children.
I've heard that's a side effect of children.
Yeah.
Everything is on the floor.
Yeah. Now, all of what I said being said, I am interested to see how this turns out. I think it is I don't necessarily agree with the basis for the suit being brought, but now that it's here, I am interested to see how it turns out, because I'm interested to see like what evidence is brought forward. Well, A, if it goes to trial, and B, if it does go to trial, what type of evidence is brought forth, what's the validity of it, will it hold any water? I mean, I'm interested to see that.
I'm interested in discovery.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I genuinely don't think that we will even get to discovery because both sides have so many skeletons in their closet that they don't want to be seen.
What are you talking? Microsoft has 0 skeletons in their closet. I don't know where you're getting any of this.
You're right. I'm sorry. They cremated all those.
Fair. Completely fair. Now, kind of on a similar ship when it comes to taking a well-known product and then having an outside party come in and do acquisitions against it, and now essentially ruin it. Have any of you guys looked into the current acquisition that Broadcom did when it bought VMware?
Okay, first off, who is Broadcom? Who is VMware?
Okay. Easier way to answer that is we'll start with VMware. VMware has been the premier hypervisor for small business, medium business, and enterprise for decades at this point. And what that
Sounds
is,
like they have a monopoly.
they pretty much did. They had the market share for the longest time, which made them rife for being bought out. Which Broadcom,
What is a hypervisor?
hypervisor, think of this as, so you have your computer, right?
Yes.
But don't think of your computer as a computer. Think of it like a pie.
Okay.
What's a computer?
Okay. If you're
Apple already has an ad for that. You can go and research that
Link
on
in the
your
show
own.
notes.
Yeah, but so you have your computer, right? And you have certain resources in there. You have this amount of processing power from your CPU. You have this much RAM available. You have this much storage. And what you can do with a hypervisor is you can take that software, install it onto your machine, and now you can essentially divvy up your entire computer like slices of pie. So if you want your machine to do this one function, cool, you can now go build a VM, a virtual machine, to now go do that function. And now you can have multiple different functioning computers hosted off of one physical box.
So if I have a either really powerful desktop or server, and it's way too powerful for one program, but it's fine if I need to run 5 or 6 different programs, but those programs have to be on different computers, I could throw a hypervisor on there.
And then virtualize everything. Yes, virtualization is the number one goal of when you put a hypervisor in there, is you're wanting to get more utilization and work out of that one machine than what you can do with what we call installing your software bare metal. And bare metal is you have one computer, one OS. That is it.
So the king of virtualization, basically.
Yes, it was VMware. Broadcom is a large conglomerate where they own multiple things. So Broadcom has done a bunch of networking type of products throughout the years. They had a lot of different NICs and network chips, things of that nature. They're kind of just a global technology leader where they do multiple different designs, development, and supply just a broad range of like semiconductor-based products, like just across the board, and including like different softwares, obviously, which is what VMware is. So their entire main goal of their company is to be that one-stop shop that has everything you potentially could need if you're a manufacturer, all the way to just a small business. Well, actually, not small business anymore, just an enterprise grade business who wants to have one place that they get all their equipment and get all their designs from, and everything, quote unquote, just works. That's Broadcom's goal.
So VMware would be a very, very attractive
Very
acquisition.
lucrative for them, because you're going from having essentially no market share in that hypervisor space to now owning over 50%. And we're talking well over 50%. What they're doing, though, similar to what Microsoft is kind of doing, locking down to OpenAI, is they're locking down VMware and how you currently access it and who's allowed to access it by pricing out the little man. And what does that actually look like? So VMware was very good about, they had a free solution, a free hypervisor known as ESXi, that you can install on a single box. And you can now just have your one server living in its one little world, hosting as many VMs as it could, as long as you're within that free license limitation, which was, you can look it back up, it was like 8 CPU cores and some amount of storage and RAM, things of that nature. But it was most of the CPU cores. So that was great for small businesses, even medium businesses, where they can have multiple different servers that can all act as separate entities, and you don't have to pay for anything. That's great. But if you needed something beyond that scope, or you wanted all of those hypervisors to talk with each other, they had a license for that. That was part of their vSphere infrastructure, which provides you a single pane of glass to then manage multiple different hypervisors. And then they had things like their partner programs, where you can be a VMware partner and get additional perks and things of that nature. And it all scaled up from there. So you can start from a single business individual entity to a large-scale enterprise, and the product fit. It would work for you. It would scale with you.
Sounds like a good business model.
It was a very good business model. Broadcom has now come in here, and they have axed the free version completely. That is gone. They have completely revamped all their licensing models. and everything that used to be quote unquote affordable for most businesses, it's no longer affordable to them. They've now been priced out because Broadcom is looking for that enterprise customer and the enterprise customer only. Only the people they can get the max profit out of with the least amount of work, which is what Broadcom does best. They will go and take a good set standard product, purchase it, cannibalize or actually not even cannibalize, just completely axe out everyone below a certain threshold, and then they sustain the product from that point going forward. And then they go and acquire another. So this has caused a large uproar in the hypervisor scene for obvious reasons. Similar to what's happening in the OpenAI scene on that front of, you had a good set standard that everyone could utilize, that was easily understood, that was easily affordable. Now it's not.
Seems like a theme that happens a lot.
I've never heard of this practice before. I don't know. What do you mean? I mean, vast majority of corporations and products out there are just tailor-made for affordability and, just available for everyone.
I mean, why would you have a product available for everyone when you can just go for one section of the market and own that market,
I mean,
and then milk them dry?
The section of the market that spends the most money, is that the section of the market you're referring to?
Yes. And then whenever that section of the market, either you lock them into that model and force them to basically be on it until a competitor moves in, or try to broaden that market. Which the problem is, you had a very broad market, and I understand focusing it. They may have focused it a little too much.
So has anybody, like in the case of OpenAI, which Musk was involved in the original founding and then got out. And so he's then now spun up his own AI, which he's now thrown out to the wider world and said, go have fun or go learn or whatever his intent is. In the case of what is essentially the primary method of making a server economical for the smaller company. Because correct me if I'm wrong, but before there was virtualization, you had to have you had to have one piece of hardware for every program if you couldn't run multiple programs on that piece of hardware. And of course, anytime you have to have more hardware, that immediately prices out who can use it.
It's program's not really the right thing to focus on in this example. It's not necessarily. Yes, there are cases where and this subject is specific to what we call on-premises environments. This is where you have your technology infrastructure all on premises in a physical space that you control. Yes, there are things that so again, like SQL Server. Preferably, you want a SQL database, SQL things to all run on just one isolated operating system. That's more so of that's more the metric here is yes, in the days before virtualization, you had to have, it was one operating system per physical device. I mean, there's plenty of instances where you can run multiple programs on one operating system. You could have a file server and a QuickBooks database and, like a third-party application database. Those could run on, those are three different programs. They could very easily run on one operating system. You have something like a domain controller that, yes, you want to isolate to one operating system. You have things like Exchange server. If you were running Microsoft Exchange, you preferably want to isolate it to one operating system. So the operating system is more so the thing that, yes, in the past you would have one per box. Virtualization allows you to take one box and host multiple operating systems that you can then run your programs, as they need to be run.
But in this instance, Nathan, to kind of delve a little bit into how the old infrastructure worked, is you were right. So when it comes to core functions, like what Steven was explaining, like you have your Active Directory controller there, you want that on one box, which means that's one server. And then you have like your file shares that were being run off another OS, which is another server. So now you have two servers, and then that continues to grow and expand. Which again, each time you add a server, you have the cost of the box, you have the license cost for the software, and then you have the uptime and long-term support that you then have to consider for that same server.
You also have power draw. You also have climate control in the room that all these boxes are in and things like that.
So what virtualization allowed is density. You could condense all of those physical servers now into just a few or possibly even one. So now you're only talking about the power usage, heat output, and management of one physical box compared to that same example, 3, possibly more. So now you're buying one piece of hardware, licensing for it, and then now you're able to host multiple different virtual machines onto it, which now is less overhead on your physical infrastructure and less overhead on your bottom dollar.
You can physically scale down, so you can, as far as software goes, scale up.
Correct.
And another aspect of this too is with these environments and a significance of the Broadcom acquisition and the adjustments to VMware's model. Everything about these environments requires licensing. I mean, just I'd say, still a large portion of these are Windows environments.
A lot of them would be Windows.
The licensing required for the Microsoft side of things is significant. That's a very large expense with the environment itself. So VMware was really nice for, like I said, small and medium businesses, because that was at least one part of the infrastructure that you could that could be powerful enough but economical. Now that they've made this adjustment, you're just tacking that much more expense onto those environment costs.
So that server now went from costing a couple $1,000 every 3 to 5 years for a license to run that solution to now double, triple, quadruple, sometimes way even more than that, to continue to run your existing infrastructure on that same software. So that's no longer an economical solution for a lot of the small to medium businesses that were fully ingrained and built their infrastructure around this solution. So now they're left high and dry of going, where do I go now? Because to the mainstream, most people, most sysadmins, there's only one other place to go, and that's back to Windows Hyper-V, which is a significant, in my view, a significant step in the wrong direction.
I would agree.
Sounds like there's a great market opportunity for someone to come in and...
Luckily, there are other options out there. You have a lot of KVM-based Linux hypervisors out there. Proxmox is one. XCP&G and the Zen Orchestra project is another one that's very popular, not just in the home lab, but also actually in data centers and other hosted providers out there that do currently utilize it. So they just hold a much smaller share of that same market. But we're going to see a really interesting shift in that type of area now where there's a power grab. Who is going to be that next VMware for that small to medium business? Who's going to be able to offer a similar solution to them at that same cost or sometimes even less? Like a lot of these open source projects, you're usually not paying for a license. You're just buying a support contract directly through the company who develops it, and that's it.
This actually, I just thought about this. It brings up an interesting thought, an interesting question. Back to the OpenAI subject. So let's just say that with this lawsuit, let's just say nothing really comes of it. Things continue as they are, which is a fairly likely scenario. If that stands and things go as they normally do, where like right now, Chat GPT, anybody can just go on, create a user account, start using Chat GPT. It's there. It's free to use.
To an
If we
extent,
start-
there is a subscription involved.
There is a subscription?
It's
Okay.
ChatGPT 3.5 that is publicly available to use. It's ChatGPT 4 that is currently behind
Behind a paywall.
paywall.
Gotcha. So what's the possibility of with Microsoft being involved as much as they are and potentially more involved as time goes on, that ChatGPT becomes fully behind a paywall?
It's very likely. There's a very high possibility, in my view, being fully invested in Microsoft infrastructure for as long as I have, that if they see an area that they can profit upon and lock users behind their solution, they're gonna do it. I mean, it's the same thing of like, look at the just even the Windows 11 fiasco of Windows 10 was supposed to be the last Windows ever, and this was gonna be, you know, free and available to everybody, and then they completely backtracked on that, and now you're still back to the whole thing of if you want Windows, you have to pay for a license if you're a net new user. If not, you have the potential, as long as your hardware is supported, we will continue to give you newer and newer versions. So that could be something that happens on the OpenAI side that Microsoft could influence as of, if you have a certain tier of subscription through us, we will continue to let you access these going forward up to a point. So like they have access to what, version 14 now?
I'm sorry, I was thinking about something. What was that?
So they have, so the subscription for ChatGPT, it's version 14?
4.
Oh, sorry, 4. Wow. I'm way ahead, way in the future.
So John is a time traveler, and he's just kind of been bouncing around all day. So forgive him for some of these flubs here.
That's fair.
He
Don't
comes
worry
by
about
him honestly.
Yeah.
So what I was thinking of real quick here was that technically GPT-4 is publicly available through the Bing / Copilot / whatever you want to call it AI, because that search engine essentially is what it is. It's not even really a chatbot at this point. Is based on GPT-4, so you can technically access GPT-4 for free. You just, I don't think it has the full functionality
gonna
that
say,
you would behind the paywall.
Let's be honest. It is a not watered. It is a cordoned off
Yeah.
version.
But
Yeah.
what would,
Highly.
what would the likelihood then going forward is, if you currently have a subscription for GPT-4, would that same subscription give you access to 5, 6, or would you have to get a higher tier or a new subscription to be able to access that version?
With the current rumors of 4.5 Turbo coming out, the rumor mill leans toward your current subscription will suffice for this version. It now, for a full version 5 or anything past that, there's no telling. It's Microsoft.
Yeah, and that's where I was leaning more in towards it. Like, it's all going to depend on what Microsoft's influence decides on that licensing model, because currently, like, on their 365 end, as long as you have an up-to-date license, they will continue to give you the most recent versions. OpenAI is a completely different product than their collaboration or even their platform as a service that they have. This is now, I mean, I don't know what the proper term is. All I keep saying is AI as a service.
It's also a different clientele, because a lot of people that are using or having to administer Microsoft Windows licenses is a specific clientele that has been doing specific things for literally decades. Anything AI related is by its nature very, very new. Its clientele is going to be very, very new, and you can train that clientele however you want to.
Right. And that's kind of where I was getting with the uncertainty of what we currently have in this OpenAI ChatGPT realm with the Broadcom and the VMwares, because this is a lot of change that has happened rapidly in two very core areas of technology that we honestly right now cannot predict what this will even look like in the next 6 months.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, and going back to what you were talking about with, will Microsoft affect this price wise? I mean, one of Musk's core ideas behind this lawsuit is that he believes that Microsoft is forcing OpenAI to betray its core tenet of keeping it open and for humanity, not for profit. OpenAI was started as a non-profit organization, I think, which is a big part of this entire lawsuit. So if Microsoft starts basically weaponizing the product, the model as a for-profit entity, that's where this lawsuit could get a lot of traction.
Yeah,
But
that's
haven't
definitely
there
interesting.
been? I mean, to be fair though, I mean, haven't there been other open source projects that have a company has developed a for-profit closed source version of it?
Yes, there's multiple projects out there where they have taken a open source project, grabbed that code themselves, developed it, and closed sourced it and resold it. Yes, that happens all the time in open
Not to
source.
say that to justify Microsoft's actions. I'm definitely not. Like I
Well-
said, I'm not in favor of what they're doing. But it's also I feel like this is headline news just because it's Microsoft and because it's AI.
Well, there's also instances I can think of a library off the top of my head where there's a open source product, like an open source library of some kind in the developer sphere that was the rights to it were bought and then it went closed source. Like I found this out about something after the fact. It was really, really aggravating when I came across it. But anyway, I digress.
So I think the big thing here though is if they were to say if they had come out and said or changed the entire business model for OpenAI, and said any model hereforth or will be closed source and for profit, I don't think that we would have this massive lawsuit. The lawsuit is because they once Microsoft invested, they closed off a previously developed version.
So to back up a little bit, if I understand the timeline right, they moved away from nonprofit and they went closed source before Microsoft invested. Now it was a very, very close time frame.
No, not quite, because Microsoft initially invested $1 billion back in 2019, and it wasn't until ChatGPT 3 came out in 2020 that they started really investing and forcing closed source.
Gotcha.
So they're active investors. It's not
Yes.
they did not do a very large one-time investment and they have their closet, like they're actively
So far,
consistently investing.
they have invested $10 billion.
Okay.
This seems like it's going to be a long-term thing because the one thing Microsoft is not great at is let's develop something net new. Let's build something brand new from the ground up. Name the last thing Microsoft made that was net new that survived more than 5 years.
The
Surface.
.NET ecosystem.
Their hardware.
So the developers, and this is a topic for another episode, but the developer experience with Microsoft stuff, at least on my end, because I have to use the .NET ecosystem on a daily basis. It is gorgeous.
Right.
It is wonderful.
But .NET has existed for how long?
It has existed since like 99, 2000, something like that. It's been
I
around
was
for a
thinking
long time.
At least 2002, so that makes sense.
Yeah, so it's been around for a couple decades now.
But have they done anything new?
They've done quite a few things new. And again, this is like a topic for another time. But they're back in 2014, 2015.
Okay, hang on, time out there. Let's set a definition of new because you're talking something 10 years ago now.
What have they done the last 3 years with .NET?
Last 3 years with .NET. Last 3 years with .NET would have been, I think Blazor technically started in 2019, but general availability was like 2020, 2021, something like that. So on the web development side, they've done quite a bit. On the Azure side, obviously, there's like all sorts of stuff that they add on there.
Again, Azure's just Microsoft hosted like data center, so that, in my view, is they're just giving you a single pane of glass that you're now paying for.
I can think of individual features that they've added to different things. If you're talking
Right,
about like a whole new product stack or something like that.
But a net new product. A net new product that they have built from the ground up, something the market has not seen before. They've actually took the time, took the energy, took the money, and now is sustaining it, and it's actually quote-unquote good.
They put a dock in their operating system instead of a taskbar. I mean, what more do you want?
I hate everything. That
It's
you
still a
just said.
taskbar. I immediately left aligned the taskbar, and anybody that's using it in the middle, I don't understand. I don't understand that at all,
Mine's currently in the center because I was too lazy to move it over.
bro.
I was.
You probably still have the search bar there too, don't you?
No, I take that off immediately.
So
I hate the
you'll go
search
through
bar.
the trouble of taking the search bar off, but you won't left align it.
Well, because the search bar, it's a right click and just turn off search.
You know he's a closet Mac user. I mean, he likes that
What's
that
that?
center dock.
I don't. I honestly don't care because I just hit the Windows key and I start typing anyways. It doesn't really matter if it's in the center or the left for me. It just works as long as I can hit the key.
The correct
I
way
can
to
do the
have
search and it doesn't take me to a stupid web page.
I don't
I'm
care
happy.
if it's a dock or a taskbar. The correct way to align it is vertical, left side of the screen.
I hate you.
What are y'all doing?
I kind of like that, but the correct way to do it is to hide it and to use PowerToys Run and just Alt Space and then
Oh,
do what you
you
need to
stop
do.
that right
Why?
now.
Yeah.
You don't have to use.
You don't need a
just use,
taskbar.
just use
Strokes.
Windows key R. Just use the built-in run function. Let's type what you need.
Well, you have to know exactly what it is. This
You're-
has the search functionality.
You're a
to it.
developer. You're supposed to know
I bet
exactly what every
ChatGPT
piece of
could
the
tell us
OS
the right
does.
answer.
I know
What
where to
everything
I
OS
know where
is.
to find the answers. I don't necessarily have all the answers right at the top of
Oh,
my head.
come on! You don't have a cheat
every
sheet.
time.
I used to have a cheat
I
sheet.
do have a
above my
lot
desk.
of cheat sheets, but autocomplete will trump a cheat sheet any day.
As long as you.
ChatGPT knows the right answer.
And
Grok probably
what
does
is-
too.
What is the right
Sure.
answer, Steven?
Actually, we should. Can we? Is there a way that you can rig up some like some code and such where you can have
Steven
Grok-
just did a hand wavy motion to demonstrate code. Can you whip up some code? Insert a hand wavy
Look.
motion there.
All right, I'll call Boomer on that. But have Grok and ChatGPT talk to each other.
Oh my gosh,
Oh,
that would be hilarious.
It was like when the dude called Domino's and Pizza Hut and put the phones like next to each other.
Yeah. Can we do that with AIs?
Yeah, we can try. Oh, we may actually. No, we probably shouldn't because that may actually implode like the entire like.
The space time continuum is going to
everything.
die.
Speaking of things,
We just thought Bard was bad.
yeah, speaking of things imploding, Nathan, where can the people find us?
You can find us on the Facebook. You can find us on the Instagram. You can find us on the Twitter, now X. That was still a terrible
The
idea.
Social media formerly known as Twitter.
Yes. You can find us on Substack. Everything is under Hostility in the Morning.
You're forgetting the most important thing again.
That's also not completely true.
The MySpace page?
On SX, it's HITM show.
Can we make a MySpace page?
We can make a MySpace
I
page.
think we should do that. Pretty
Justin
sure you can
Timberlake
find
doesn't own
everything at
MySpace anymore, so
Hostility.
we're good.
You can find everything at hostilityinthemorning.com.
Thank you, Steven.
I wasn't done yet. I didn't forget.
You should start with hostilityinthemorning.com and then go to everything else. Unless we're working off of the save the best for last.
Don't forget to like,
Philosophy.
subscribe, and hit that ding dong notification bell.
And have a hostile morning.